Right, as Gareth has just said, we believe taxi commuters should brace themselves for an increase in fares of up to 22%, or up to 20% rather. Let's go live to the South African National Taxi Council, Santaco, and that is Nkululeko Buthelezi, whom you see sitting there in our studios. He's Santaco's CEO. Nkululeko, thank you very much for coming in. 20%, I mean, that really is an exorbitant rise, but can you justify it?
Yes, Joanne, firstly, I think we need to clarify that this petrol hike is the second one in the past 30 days. The first one, when we calculated it, was about a 6.7% increase on our operating cost. This one represented a 2.5% increase on our operating cost. And therefore, the total increase in the past 30 days in our operating cost comes to about 9.2%. And therefore, we are saying in the areas, in the coastal areas, we're recommending a 10% increase. And in the areas within inland and long distances, it can go up to 20%. And that will be a prerogative of different taxi associations. But I think really, as a taxi association, we have to recover our cost of doing this particular service.
But sadly, the knock-on effects are faced by the poorest of the poor, the workforce really, that you're transporting all over the country. Isn't that a great tragedy of these petrol prices?
It is actually, and I think we really sympathize with the commuters who are supposed to face this kind of increases. But again, I think for us, it actually empowers the call for government to actually step in and provide a subsidy. Because as you know, only taxi commuters are not enjoying the subsidy that bus commuters and rail and even how train commuters are actually getting from government. So we're calling for government to actually step in. But I think we cannot be expected as the industry to cushion this kind of increases because we've been charging social fares. Yeah.
To be fair, to come in there, Nkululeko, you're not a government enterprise. You're not a parastatal like Metro Rail, for example. You're not an effort like the Gautrain. You're a private enterprise. You are private business. Why should government step in and subsidize you?
First, let me explain. Subsidy was a decision of government in the 1957 when people were moved away from their places of location into townships. Government made an act which was called the Black Transport Services Act, which was saying, then government, because it has moved people away from their places of work, then it must actually provide a subsidy. And therefore, I'm saying a subsidy must be provided to all public transport users. And again, I think I must correct you. Subsidy is not paid to only government-owned entities. Bus companies like Partco and Gauteng Coaches and many other bus companies which are privately owned are getting subsidy from government. And we don't understand why taxi commuters cannot be subsidized. And I think we are saying subsidy must not be paid to us as a taxi industry, but must be paid to commuters, and then they can actually choose what mode of transport they actually use.
But surely this also creates the demand for more competition. The higher the prices go up, which is totally unavoidable in the current climate we have, yes, the greater the commuter's choice between bus, rail and taxi transport. Absolutely.
I think as a taxi industry, we're very comfortable. We currently are transporting 65% of the commuting public, and we are the most accessible mode of transport. So we welcome any kind of competition, but I think currently competition is not fair. We're competing against people who are receiving subsidy, and therefore we're unable to charge market-related fares. As I tell you today, some of our fares we're undercharging by as high as 60%. And I think you cannot expect any business to actually survive. So we welcome any competition, but government must then subsidize everyone so that you can compete equally.
Robin Carlyle, of course, the Western Cape Transport MEC, has made an interesting comment. He says if you want the industry to be subsidized, you would have to follow government regulations. Would you be prepared to follow government rules to the T?
I can confirm that we have always followed government regulations. We're using operating licenses. We pay our taxes as the taxi industry. So on our side, we have always been prepared to actually follow government laws. And I think once government can subsidize the taxi industry, I can guarantee you will see a complete change of this industry, because for the first time we'll be able to afford newer vehicles, better quality, pay our drivers better, and definitely the country can have a working public transport system.
But you've also had the option of cherry-picking your routes now, to quote the minister here. If you want a subsidy, he says, taxi owners would have to comply with laws, you'd have to employ all your drivers lawfully, make sure they're licensed, and basically stick to the routes that you're allocated.
I can guarantee you our routes are actually determined by our operating licenses. So as far as I'm concerned, and I think you can verify this, our members are actually complying to the laws of this country. And I think that cannot be made as an excuse for not subsidizing taxi commuters. I think government must do its part. As a taxi industry, we are ready to actually do our part. These kind of excuses that are keep on being made to exclude taxi commuters, I think are actually running out of taste. I think people must do what they have to do.
Nkululeko, Buthelezi, thank you very much for talking to us.
News that moves. eNCA.com.